Welcome to Auto Off Topic. Hi, Brad. How are you?
I'm surprised you remember the name. It's been so long.
It has been. Of course, if you're listening in order, it's right after the last one.
If you're listening in order, not the day it comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we kind of go all year, and even your favorite TV show takes an entire season off. So
It's true.
it's 2 weeks. It's fine.
Yeah, it was a long 2 weeks. I was in Detroit for work and then went right through to LA.
Also,
But the LA part, yeah, also for work. But the LA part was cool. Detroit, kind of cold and gray. So,
I mean, it's kind of like New England in a different
yeah.
location. Minus,
I know we have some
minus the
listeners in
mountains and
Detroit.
trees.
Yeah, but I was very busy. So,
I mean, you
plus
have to
I
work
had a
for
couple.
fun. So
No, although we did go one night with a bunch of people from work. We went electric go karting,
that's cool.
and everybody was shocked how fast I was. I'm like, yeah,
I've
that's
done this
right.
before. Yeah. This is not my first rodeo.
No,
Although I did
I
see a
literally
statement the
have.
other day that said, I'm shocked with how much I'm supposed to know by my second rodeo. And I
Yeah,
laughed for a while at that.
yeah. I've got hundreds of laps in indoor go karts.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I do too, but I'm not fast. So maybe you're just good.
I mean, the two other guys that were just slightly faster than me, I weigh as much as the two of them combined. So
Excellent. So they were half your age.
no, they're only a
Yes.
couple years younger than me, but they're
Listen,
just
Andrew.
much thinner.
No, Andrew. They're half your age. They're children. It's fine.
I don't work with children. That doesn't make sense.
Well, half your age would be old enough to work. So they're just younger and smaller.
Okay.
I
All
was
right.
just
All right.
saying, don't admit that you're fat on the air, is what I was saying.
I didn't say how much they weigh, and I didn't say how much I weigh.
Well, theoretically, if you weigh double their weight, and they're not children, they're at least 100 pounds.
I'd be fine with being 200 pounds.
Okay, good. So you're 200 pounds, and they're each 100 pound. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, I like it.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, I always used to blame my weight on go kart lap times, but turns out I'm just not that good.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Sorry.
It's fine. The only place the only place I will say it did make a difference was early days at F1 Boston, where I had a hill. My
Eh,
weight definitely held me back on the hill, no question.
eh.
But I don't know. I think it did.
The electric definitely helps with it because
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
the power band is just the entire power band.
Yeah. If you bogged down an old gas cart, they took a long time to get going again.
Yeah, the only thing with electric is if you slide them and they lose traction, that's actually where you lose out.
Right.
But
Well,
they
it's the
don't
same with
bog
gas
down
ones. Well, the gas ones, you slide them and they lose
and they
traction
bog.
and then they bog,
Yeah.
which is fun to slide them. And it feels like you're taking the corner faster, but obviously
No.
you probably are going around the actual corner faster, but you've lost the momentum on exiting the corner. That's probably where the issue
So I
is.
saw advertised on Instagram certain K1s, the electric place, it's like a national chain.
Yep, there's one
They
here.
do drift nights now.
Okay.
They like swap out, I think they
Plastic
throw
tires.
like plastic tires on the things.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. I would like to try that one night. Be a little different.
Maybe when you come out here, we'll do a K1 drift night.
Yeah, as long as it's during the week. If they're having it,
I mean, you'll be here more than a day. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So anyway, where was I? We're doing that work trip. Yeah, so that's why no episodes for 2 weeks because on the road. But we did do a bunch of cool stuff that we'll get to.
It sure did.
But you want to talk about your favorite thing in Phoenix, though, which is sideshows?
Yeah. So some little fallout from this now. So obviously they're lame and they're terrible, and you should not participate. Correct?
I mean, it sounds like you really like them. I'm sure you're not. Like,
I'm not positive about these. Listen, I'm all about having fun in a car, but when you enter fun in the car plus mob mentality, that's when problems start to arise. So if you're having fun in a car and you're in your own way. You're being as safe as you can be while being dangerous. Whatever. You enter the mob mentality and you have hundreds of people and multiple cars, and there's people getting hit and cars getting smashed and guns being drawn and shots being fired, and it's a whole thing. There was recently here in Phoenix a sideshow that ended with some lady getting mad and yelling and calling the police, and some guy following to her house and like shooting up her house. So obviously that's bad. But the fallout from these sideshows is what's bothering me right now. I mean, this is like Peter Griffin's, it grinds my gears segment. So we had here in Phoenix, or actually I think it was in Tempe, there was an organized meet in a parking garage. There was not a sideshow. It was an organized meet in a parking garage. At this meet, there were, I think they said like 400 cars. And there were vendors and there were food trucks. And it was legitimately an organized meet in a parking garage.
Yeah, it sounds like a car show.
Yeah, at nighttime. So
Okay.
somebody who lives near his parking garage got upset that they were all there and called the police. And the police came down and broke up this parking garage car show, which was being very quiet. In fact, if you watch videos from this parking garage car show, there was all kinds of racing going on, but it was people on foot. They were doing like foot races in the top floor for some reason. Like, they were all pretty young kids. They weren't misbehaving. They were in a parking garage car show with vendors. So the police show up and they decided that they were going to do a sideshow later on in the parking garage. So they're going to break up this car show before it gets out of hand and find the guy who's organizing it and cite him for inciting it was like inciting drag racing,
Okay.
and gave him a citation for inciting a crowd to participate in like, I don't know, I forget the exact wording, but it's basically like inciting a dangerous crowd.
Yeah.
So that fallout is now on every car event, that if you park a car with like-minded car people, you could be cited and charged with amping up a crowd to maybe go do a sideshow. And that's the kind of stuff that these sideshows are going to wind up causing an issue with, because they're going to wind up making every car guy's a bad guy, right? Because some guys are bad guys.
Do they have like permits and stuff, or like
I don't
permission to be
know.
in
I
there?
don't know the specifics. And if they did have permits, it's even worse. If they didn't, I can understand breaking up the event.
Or at least permission to be in. I suppose if
Right.
you had permission to be on private property, you don't really need permits.
Sure.
Maybe, I don't
Maybe
know.
for the food trucks, I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah.
regardless of the permitting or no permitting, if they didn't have permits, then, or not permission to be there, then the cops can go in and say, "Hey guys, cool, glad you're behaving. You got to leave. Have a nice night." Right?
Yeah,
Not.
there is a level of organization though if you've got food trucks.
Yeah, it was a pretty heavy. I mean, I saw flyers and stuff on Instagram to go to this event. Like, it wasn't. I didn't go. I'd have been super mad if I did. It was, the crowd skewed a lot younger than my crowd, so I wasn't planning on going.
It sounds like that. It's like I looked it up actually because I was looking at photos not that long ago. Remember the mass tuning meet that was in the parking garage in downtown Boston?
Yeah.
It was like 2012.
Yep.
That's what this sounds like.
Yeah, that show got out of hand though.
Yeah.
Like, there was a reason that the police came to that one, because there was, at the time, there was no such thing as legal marijuana, and there was a lot of marijuana smoke. And on top of it, there was also a lot of people doing rev competitions and burnouts in the garage.
Yeah.
So that was bad, and that deserved to get broken up. Also, in 2000 and it might have been before 2012,
No, it was 2012.
was it?
100% 2012.
So 2012 was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I guess we weren't kids then either, but we were closer to kid age, so we were there. So, yeah. So anyway, I'm just upset because I don't want to go in a parking lot with a friend now and have the police come and be like, "Oh, I think you guys are gonna go do a sideshow and you leave here, so here's a ticket." Like that's some Minority Report stuff. Like that's not legal, I don't think, right?
I don't know.
I don't know, it bothers me. And it bothers me that because these events are becoming so popular, they're making legitimate events look bad. And especially my problem with that particular one is the writing the ticket for the guy who organized it for inciting, reckless driving. Because he didn't. Like, he hosted a car meet and a bunch of people showed up and he had vendors. You know, I don't know. I just, I'm a grumpy. I don't want to be grumpy. I'm grumpy. Take me out of this, Andrew. I don't like it.
Well, I assume it's like I think it's like the 1320 thing where they would film, right? Illegal drag racing,
Okay.
but you're making the money off of the YouTube views and the merch.
Yeah, and they're
And
not
I'm
actually
assuming
doing.
people, yeah, and assuming people are doing the same thing with these sideshows. You're getting views on videos, and
So they've changed the laws here in Phoenix. They call it the Street Racing Task Force.
yeah,
It's brand new. It started last year. They actually just made it permanent, and its whole purpose is to stop sideshows and to stop drag racing on the streets. Um, Unrelated topic, they just announced that the city is taking over the only drag strip in town by eminent domain next year. So I don't know how this is all going to help, but that's, a tale as old as time, right? So they started this street racing task force, and they have said, and they have written into law, so this is a law, that if you are at a sideshow event or an illegal drag race and you are participating or spectating, you can be charged with the same crime. Just spectating it now because they want to stop it. So that's fine. It's on the books. They've made the law. I'm pretty sure there's no law where it's like, oh, you gathered a bunch of cars parked in a parking lot, you're inciting a sideshow. That's where my issue comes from. And the news channels, even, they blew it out of proportion. Literally, the news channel had a video of a drone, and they're like, oh, we snuck our drone into the show to show you what was happening. And they have literal drone footage of a parking garage with a bunch of cars parked in it, and like a taco truck, and a guy selling t shirts. And then they cut in footage from other sideshows in the past that they had in their inventory, in like their library, to make it seem like it was a bad thing.
yeah.
So the
Remember when
news,
Channel 7 did that to us?
yeah, I was going to bring that up. That was well before 2012. That was
Yeah,
like
that was like
2003.
03 to like 06 or something.
Yeah, they infiltrated our illegal drag racing crew.
It's like five of us in a parking lot.
We were all literally at Kelly's roast beef, which is questionable in itself. Standing
Yeah,
around,
don't judge it. I
don't
wasn't
judge us.
eating roast
We were
beef
young.
there.
I was definitely eating roast beef because as much as I don't like Kelly's, it's still better than no roast beef. And if everybody else is going there, you might as well have a roast beef. So, yeah, the video is literally us all standing by our cars. Like, I think I'm leaning on either the Evo or the Talon or whatever. Like,
The guy was like across the street with like a camcorder. It's
eating
really sketchy.
eating a roast beef sandwich, and they're like, "We infiltrated this group of illegal street racers, gathering up to plan their races." And I was like, "I'm not planning a race.
It was like
I need a
daylight.
sandwich." Yeah,
It's like a Saturday afternoon. It was really
yeah,
weird.
it was very strange, but it was very similar to that, where they busted this crew of, you know, they called them something else. They called them in the news report street stunters. Gathering of 500 street stunters was broken up by police today. It's like, oh, so now the public is like, oh, these guys, screw these guys. In fact, when I heard about it in the first place, the person was like, why would these people go to a sideshow inside a parking garage? Because they're going to get caught. Like, there's no other way around it. It's like, well, they weren't. They were having a parking garage meet. So, anyway, it just makes me angry that because it's becoming so pervasive, it's becoming an issue with people who aren't doing it being accused of doing it. And it's that whole one bad apple spoils the bunch, right? So just if you see it happening, I know you can't like actively stop it, but just avoid it. Don't video it. Don't post it. I mean, just back away from it. It's bad. They're not car people. They're just people that want to make a statement on the internet. Um,
Well, it's like those guys that rented Tesla
Yeah,
jumped it.
it's the same thing. It's just it's mob mentality. You know, no, they didn't plan that jump. Sure, they did. I'm sure they didn't. That's why there were 17 people there with cameras. So
Yeah.
it's just that it's that mob mentality and that I want to be Instagram famous for a day mentality, and it's it's ruining things. Um, I think we need
I
to
will say the thing about
take
the
back car culture. That's what we got to do.
yeah, I will say the thing about the drag strip though, that's not great because in California, when they had really bad street racing in the '90s and people were getting killed, what did they do? They made everybody
Yeah,
go
drag strip.
to drag strips.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so there's a reason
Well,
why
that's
that.
the irony here. Like the police are busting up a car show, and they're saying, "Oh, it's to stop street racing." So what's the city doing? Oh, we're eminent domaining the drag strip, so you can put a new on ramp on.
Yeah, there was, you know, they used to do like race a cop and stuff
Yep,
like that,
yep.
and yeah, that was
The longer you're around, the longer you're alive, the more you see the same things over and over again, right? You
yeah,
know, and like you said, back in 2003, it was us in a parking lot being accused of being street racers. You know, and here it is, these kids now in 2022 being accused of being street stunters when all they're doing is something that's old as a car meet. So, I mean, you get a bunch of people into cars, they got to go in a parking lot. So, leave them alone unless they're causing a problem.
hmm
Like I said, there was a movie about that. It was called Minority Report, arresting somebody for thinking about committing a crime. It's basically what was happening there, and that's ugh. Anyway. That's my rant for the day, Andrew.
sure.
You want another rant? What else can I rant about?
I don't know. What do you got?
Have you ever heard of? Let me rephrase that. Do you know that there was a Canadian automotive division that was not sold to the United States?
Yeah, I think I do. Vaguely.
Okay, so I knew this, but I always thought it was a model of a Pontiac called the Acadian. I
Yeah,
always thought that they were called Pontiac
that was like
Acadians.
a Nova.
So the first generation was a Chevy 2 or Nova, and the second generation was a Chevelle based or Malibu based. Um, but I always, and confirmed this at work with other people who are well versed in cars, thought that the Acadian was a model of a Pontiac only sold in Canada. Because we never had a version in this country of the Chevy 2, the first generation Chevy 2 in the Pontiac brand. So I was always under the assumption that the Acadian was just how GM for some reason sold them in Canada as a Pontiac. And then there's also the Beaumont, and I thought that the Beaumont was a Beaumont Acadian. So I learned a bunch today. We had somebody submit an Acadian to our auction site for sale. So I had to do a little research because I was having a hard time finding comparable sales by searching Pontiac Acadian. So this is a neat little GM history lesson. I could see how I got confused. So in 1962, General Motors said, we're going to make a division just for Canada, and we're going to call the brand name the Acadian. They didn't say, we're going to make a model of a Pontiac and call it an Acadian. They said, it's going to be the Acadian. And I was like, okay, interesting.
The
And then,
R Canadian.
so they're a Canadian built General Motors vehicle called the Acadian. So, yes, they are a Canadian, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Arcadian, eh?
Arcadian. He's Arcadian. So then there was a car called the Beaumont, and it was a trim level on an Acadian. So now I'm thoroughly confused because A, I thought there was a Pontiac Acadian, and B, I thought there was a Pontiac Beaumont. So now I had to do some more digging. So in 1962, there was a car called the Acadian, which had a trim level called the Beaumont. In 1967, they dropped the Acadian line altogether, and the brand name, so the mark, was now a Beaumont. And there were no models. It was one car. It was based on the Chevelle Malibu. At 64, actually, I think. 65. I might be off in the years. 66. 66 is when it became part of the Malibu. So 62, 63, you could buy an Acadian. 64, 65, you could buy an Acadian or an Acadian Beaumont. Or 1966, now you could buy a Beaumont, but not an Acadian. That's a Chevelle. In none of this is the word Pontiac in there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't for the life of me figure out why I always thought they were Pontiac Acadians. So they only sold these from 1962 until 1971 under those different names. And then they started again out of nowhere in 76 and made a car called the Pontiac Acadian that was a Chevrolet Chevette.
Weird.
So in the United States, we got a Pontiac version of the Chevette, but it was called the T1000, not
Yeah.
Terminator.
Yeah.
But in Canada, they didn't sell a T1000. They sold a Pontiac Acadian just to further muddy the waters of the Acadian name and confuse me in 2022.
Wasn't it also a Toyota pickup?
What's that?
The T1000.
Yes, was it T1000?
Yeah.
The T something. I think you're right.
Yeah. It was a T1000 because they did like a Terminator tie into it.
Did they really?
Yeah. Terminator 3. There's a Terminator 3 special edition Toyota pickup truck.
All right. It was T100. It wasn't the T1000.
T100. Okay.
I don't think there was a Terminator tie-in. I think you're making that up.
No, there was.
You're having a fever dream.
For Terminator 3. Not a very good Terminator movie. Arguably one of the worst.
So there is a Toyota pickup truck tie-in to Terminator, but it has nothing to do with the T100.
Okay.
So it was a first-gen Tundra. They did a
so stupid
marketing mistake right there. Yes. So they did a Toyota Tundra Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines special edition in which they advertised it with one red headlight, which obviously they couldn't sell it that way because you can't have forward-facing red lights. So I think it was just a sticker on the quarter panel that said T3 Rise of the Machines. So
you know how well movie tie-ins and cars work because it makes so much sense.
Yeah, not very well. I can't think of any that have worked well. We should do an episode about that, I think.
We did one with tie-ins for different weird things, and I think
we did one with designer.
We probably mentioned that, and I know we mentioned the Rogue. We said Rogue One.
Yeah, we did one for different advertising tie-ins early on in the show, which we could probably revisit.
Yeah, I should do a Throwback Thursday episode for that one.
Yeah,
post it because that was a pretty funny one.
We didn't do any of those, but we should have done those when he went away.
Yeah, I forgot. Oops.
Sorry, guys.
I'm gonna fire that.
Auto off topic vacation. So anyway, so that's the Acadian history, and I now know how to look up an Acadian to check values, and so does our audience. So
weird. I feel like you would have found that out if you watched that Rust Valley Restorers show.
Yeah, well, have you ever watched that, Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not very good, so I don't watch it.
It's like kind of like trashy.
That's
it's
the one
throw it
with
on
the guy
sometimes.
with the dreadlock.
The dreads.
Yeah, that show's bad.
Yeah, it's weird.
You should reverse this episode and then delete that part where you admitted to watching it. I won't tell you.
I said it's trashy. I don't.
All right.
It's a guilty pleasure.
All right.
Sometimes
I haven't watched it, and I've seen enough trailers to know I didn't want to watch it, but maybe I'll have to give it a chance, Andrew.
I was watching it when my father-in-law was visiting, and we were just making fun of it because the guy's so dumb.
Okay.
My father-in-law was also a mechanic. He's retired now, but he's like, "What is that guy doing that for? It's so stupid."
All right.
Like, that's not how you do that.
We will allow it. That's okay. So I've had the same thing when watching any of those. The majority of those car shows are just like, they're clearly made for the lowest common denominator. They're made for the general public who knows nothing about cars. And I don't know. That's a hard one to. What's the one where they make terrible looking customs? Oh, Gotham Garage.
I don't know. There's like so many.
Well, there's one where they make really bad cars, and somebody the other day was like, "Oh, do you watch Gotham Garage?" And then started talking about all of the cool cars they make, and I looked them up, and I nearly threw the computer at him. That's how offended I was that he thought I would like them. They were
Okay.
they were very bad, very bad. In fact, I am going to have to show them to you after this episode so you can see how bad they are. So they're second only to Bad Jad's Customs is terrible customs.
Okay.
So also a Canadian show.
Hmm.
Yeah, stop giving dumb people microphones, people. Shit,
We're still here.
Somebody's taking my microphone away.
Yeah.
Not good. All right, ignore that comment. So anyway, that's your Pontiac, not Pontiac Acadian. So there is a Pontiac Acadian. It's just not what I thought it was, and didn't come till later. And it's a Chevette.
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up for me.
It's not for you. It's for the audience. I'm pretty sure that everybody would be very interested in knowing this. That there's an Acadian and a Beaumont and a Pontiac Acadian, and the names intertwine all over the place, and it's quite annoying. Do you know what the SS version of the Beaumont would be called?
I don't know, the Maple Leaf?
No, they called it the SD 396 instead of SS 396.
SD Super Duty?
It stood for Sport Deluxe.
Oh.
So that was the top trim version. So I like these cars. They're not cheap because they're interesting. You know, like I said, they're essentially the same car as the Chevys, just with some different trim. I think that the Beaumonts are basically a Chevelle body with a unique grille, and then I think they have like a Pontiac dashboard, which probably also adds to the confusion. But you don't see them very often. But when you see them, they're like, it's like, oh, that Chevelle looks weird. Why? Or that
You know,
looks
it's
strange.
always
Why?
it's weird, right? Like, why sell different cars in Canada? Like, we're so close as
Mm-hmm.
countries. Like,
Well, I mean, we had that same thing when we had the same conversation about the terrible naming convention of Mitsubishis over the years, because we had Dodge Colts here, and then in Canada they sold the same car, but it was a Plymouth Colt. Like,
yeah.
okay, that seems like a waste of time. Like, just making a Dodge Colt. So,
Well, that might have been like um amount of dealerships, maybe, but you know, a Chevy dealer is there's like Chevy and Pontiac dealers. There's got to be
in Canada,
Canada.
yeah, yeah.
So why just not just sell Chevys or sell Pontiacs? It's weird, right?
Well,
Like,
think back to GM at the time, like GM from the dawn of time until fairly recently. They had so many repetitive brands. Like, was there ever a reason for a Chevy, a Buick, a Pontiac, an Oldsmobile of the same car? Like, there never really was a reason for that. It was just a marketing thing where they thought, hey, the more brands we have, the more cars we can sell. But if they dropped Buick or Pontiac early on and just had one of them, the same buyers probably would have bought the Pontiac or Buick, whichever one survived. Like, it wouldn't have been.
yeah.
They wouldn't have gone to Ford, like a whole different manufacturer. They would have bought the same car, just in the Pontiac version. You know, it just seems redundant, and it's only fairly recently where these brands have been like, wait a second, what are we doing? You know, Ford did it with Mercury. They're like, wait, why do we have Mercury and Ford? It's the same shoppers. I get early on in American car history, 20s, 30s, and around
Well, you had
then,
like
they were
you'd have
levels.
a Lincoln, you'd have a Lincoln Mercury dealer
Well,
versus a
right. So,
Ford.
but Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln made sense at the time early on because your Ford was your entry level, your Mercury was your intermediate luxury, and your Lincoln was your top of the line. But GM had Chevrolet as the entry level and Cadillac as top of the line. But then they had these three or four mid level cars that just didn't make any sense to have all of them together. And it was just,
Yeah, didn't it go like it was like Chevy, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac,
um,
or I have Oldsmobile and Buick swapped?
I mean, I guess it kind of could have. I think Buick and Olds were kind of interchangeable most of the time. Pontiac always had a little more performance than some of the other ones. Actually, not no, they didn't, because in the '50s, Oldsmobile did. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. There was no true lineage there. It was, you drove a GM car, whether it was a Chevy or a Buick, and the only difference was when you made it, you bought a Cadillac. And the American
Yeah.
automotive manufacturers had such a like feelings of grandeur, such like this American car exceptionalism, like we're the best, nobody's good as us, so we can make the same car 6 times and people will buy it, until people started buying Mercedes and BMWs and Hondas and like, wait a second. And they didn't even catch on until fairly recently when they started dropping these brands. Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth. Like, why was Plymouth? Why? And then for a while, Eagle. Why Eagle? A brand without identity.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we could debate that for years.
There's a debate.
Speaking
There's
of,
facts.
yeah, speaking
American
of
car
odd,
manufacturers were dumb.
speaking of odd cars that share the same guts,
It's Sony
I rode
guts.
in. Yeah, it's Sony guts. I rode in. I rode in Tony Bird's. He's a listener and friend. He's got a 400 horsepower Eclipse,
Is that 400
a
wheel?
1G. Yeah.
That's fast.
I think it's a 91. It's got
Looks
pop
like
ups,
it.
so it's
Yeah.
91. And it's actually, if you watch, this is an old video now. I think it came out in like 2018 or 2017, because it was before Radwood 17. He's in the Smoking Tire one take. Matt Farah drives it.
Yeah,
the
he did
1G
two
Eclipse.
videos. He did the 1G Eclipse one take video, and there was some like fake commercial
The
he made with
Eclipse.
it too, Eclipse it all
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
It was
It's
like
actually kind of funny.
an
I don't think he's
antidepressant
never done
commercial.
anything else. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I met Tony because he lived. It's not too far from where my work was, and I was available, and went down and had a nice dinner with him and his fiance, and took me for a ride in the Eclipse. And yeah, 400 horsepower is really fast in one of these cars.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've ridden in a very fast Eclipse. A car that runs nines. I don't know what his horsepower to wheel is, probably somewhere there or north. But it's mind bending to be in a car that feels so familiar but is that dumb.
Yeah, and it was a super trip because we'll get to it. I was riding around in your non-turbo all weekend until I rode in Tony's car.
Yeah, and we were like, well, the car's not turbo, but it's quick enough to have fun.
Yeah, yeah.
130 horsepower, it's fine.
400 is probably a little too spicy for me for what I want to do. I want to be around 300 wheel, but
Which I think your car probably is somewhere between 250 and 300 wheel, right?
not right now.
No, it has been.
No.
Your car feels really fast.
Yeah, but it's not. It it needs to be tuned. It's not 300 wheel now.
Well, I think it's north of 200. I can tell you that much.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's not much more than the Galant right now. But anyway.
Maybe I'm remembering it differently, because I remember that car being significantly faster than what I was used to.
Yeah, it's not slow, but it needs some tuning.
Yeah.
And we'll have some updates on that coming soon. But anyway, so yeah, that was a little fun thing. And then speaking of turbo all drive things coming back, of all manufacturers,
The most exciting car manufacturer in
shocked.
the market right now.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah, truly. Toyota announced the GR Corolla.
Yep.
The Gazoo Racing.
Yep.
Corolla. So not the Yaris.
I'm not sure of the history on Gazoo Racing. I need to figure that out.
I'm not sure either. I gotta look that up.
They had this perfectly good name, TRD, and then all of a sudden they were like, no, Gazoo. I'm like, oh, okay.
I like better. It's because it's so weird.
It's very Japanese.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound out turd when you look at it.
No.
Which is positive.
So they have built. It's the current gen Corolla.
It's the current gen Corolla hatch. Yep.
Yep. It's got like flared fenders now.
Sure.
Like box flares almost.
It looks like a WRC car.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of got that body kit, but
Super cool.
like more of a street car. 3-cylinder, turbo, manual, all-wheel drive, fancy diffs, no MSRP yet.
300 horsepower.
Yeah,
Um,
but so it's comparable to an STI, which is dead.
yep. Or it's an all-wheel drive Civic Type R,
Yeah,
or it's a Ford Focus RS. It's
right.
that same kind of level of car. So here's the one. The only reason I'm not super excited about it:
All right.
the car market is terrible. So
It
it's
is
going to
terrible
go
right
to a
now.
dealer, and the dealer is going to mark it up, and there's going to be a wait, and people are going to buy them and flip them for double MSRP. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I think back when like I said, that happens all the time now, and unfortunately, I work in this industry, so I'm probably part of the problem. But I see these cars being bought, and not even like super exciting enthusiast cars, but I mean, even the Ford Mavericks are being marked up at dealers. But the enthusiast versions of cars are all being bought, and then the first buyer is immediately putting them on an auction site and flipping them and getting another 20 grand out of them, which is infuriating. And I think back to you and me in what 2003 and 4, buying Evos and STIs and like being able to bargain with the dealership to buy it. Not markups, not like
Yeah, because it turned out people in those days didn't want these cars.
yeah.
They were
It's
like,
not people
and
these
it,
days don't either. They just hold what they want and they go and they mark it up. Like they shouldn't have been. Broncos shouldn't have sold on the secondhand market for $100,000, and they did.
no.
Tons of them did. You shouldn't be able to buy a Corvette for your $60,000 MSRP, pay another 10 grand to the dealer to buy it because the dealers are being greedy, and then go put it on Bring a Trailer and sell it for 125. Like that's
Yeah.
that to me. I mean, there's is there too much easy money out there? Is what is it? And if there is too much easy money, why don't I have it? Because it's not that easy apparently.
Well, it's like when we were buying Evos and STIs, they were like back in the 70s when Plymouth had the Superbirds. Nobody wanted those. Nobody wanted Daytonas
Yeah, I
because
guess.
they were ridiculous looking.
I mean,
And that's kind of the way
I
that's
remember
kind of what the Evos and STIs were.
I remember going to the dealership and I bought the car. It was basically secondhand. It belonged to somebody who worked at the dealership, but it had 7,000 miles on it, and it's stickered new for what 32.5.
Yeah.
And I was out the door for like 27 and a half. The car was 3 months old.
Yeah.
So if that was today, and these cars, you go out there and say it's stickered for 32, which it won't. It'll be over 40. You go out there for 32 and put 7,000 miles on it in 6 months, and it's going to sell for 45. Like what? I don't understand. It's frustrating as an enthusiast to see the prices doing what they're doing. I mean, just in the past week, and Bring a Trailer results are obviously strange sometimes, but they sold a $44,000 Mark II Golf. Today they sold a $55,000 Saab 900. Like neither one of them were low mile brand new cars. Both of them had flaws. Like it just the car market doesn't make sense anymore. And as we become older enthusiasts, more mature enthusiasts, you like to think we can stop buying crap boxes and buy nice cars. But I'm not going to pay more than the value of a car for a car just because people want it to be that for some ungodly unknown reason now. Like I'll just keep buying crap boxes. So don't want to. Kind of have to.
So anyway, back to that GR Corolla.
Yeah,
It does have a forged carbon roof,
which is
which is
ugly
pretty
but
cool.
cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, it's cool, but you can't tell me that forged carbon is pretty.
Why it looks pretty cool. Why doesn't it look? I don't understand what the hate on it is.
Forged
It's
carbon
funny because
is the
they
plywood of
actually
carbon fiber.
they had they had it covered with the fake carbon weave plastic.
Oh, that's weird.
Uh, but I guess for the debut models, they're going to have it off. It'll be clear coated.
Oh.
Hey, it looks cool.
Well, I see it on like Lamborghinis and stuff, and it looks like it's like I said, it's the plywood of carbon fiber.
No, it's got aluminum in it.
Is it not what I'm thinking it is? What's the fancy new carbon fiber on Lamborghinis and stuff?
I thought it had aluminum dispersed in it. That's why it's forged carbon fiber. You put aluminum into it.
It's not a weave though. It has
Yeah, it still looks cool because It's real carbon and real aluminum.
Yeah, I don't like whatever that new car, but forged composite Lamborghini. Yeah,
I don't care if it's the MDF of carbon fiber.
it just looks like it. It looks weird. I don't like it. Have you looked at one up close yet? Those new Lamborghinis? I just
Yeah, it looks really cool.
think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just spoiled because I'm here just outside of Scottsdale, where everybody has a Lamborghini. And I see.
I thought the joke thing you sent me about it, I thought somebody had airbrushed like skulls. It was a bunch of airbrushed skulls.
No,
That's what it looked like in the
that's
picture.
what.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that would definitely be ugly.
No, this is the forged. It looks like dirty carbon fiber.
I don't know. It's kind of cool.
All right. Well, I guess we can't agree on taste. That's taste. So I don't like it. I love
Yeah.
carbon fiber. I
Hey, it's
love the
good.
weave. I love the detail of it. I just that forged composite carbon fiber stuff. I just don't.
It's cool. It's very purposeful. It's probably bad. It probably looks junky on a dumb Lamborghini, but the roof of the Corolla looks pretty cool.
I don't know. It looks like it looks unfinished to me. So
It looks better than when they just painted the roofs black on the last gen Evos,
I mean,
like the final editions.
there's a lot of problems with the final edition. Final edition Evos, but yeah, I don't. I'm trying to find I'll find a picture to show you what I'm talking about. I just don't
All
like
right.
it.
So, what about your most exciting Toyotas you've got?
Well, my thing about Toyota being the most exciting manufacturer right now has
Since
nothing to
your
do with
number
buying old
one,
man sedans.
yeah, since your number one Toyota
Uh,
friendship ended with Mitsubishi, new friendship Toyota.
no, I'm still a totally Mitsubishi guy. I've always had a lust or a love for Cressidas, though. So, we moving on to project car stuff. So
Sure.
I think last time we spoke, I had just sent the tank of the Cressida off for the radiator for the radiator shop to boil to clean it out.
Yeah.
So I got said tank back. Um, and one thing I had not thought about was when you get that tank back, it's going to have no coating inside at all, and it's going to immediately flash rust, which it did,
Right.
and that's annoying.
I don't know how you would keep it from not doing that.
You know, you have to buy a coating. So like Eastwood makes a coating, some motorcycle companies make coatings, but I don't want to put a coating inside the tank because I've heard too many horror stories on tanks that have like complex shapes that they won't dry in the right way, and then fuel will get under a seam or a crack, and then it will start eating away the adhesion, and it will wind up making your fuel tank full of sediment now from the coating breaking apart. So I don't want to deal with that on this car because I want to be one and done. So I bought like a
Yeah, and I can tell you that exact thing happened on my mom's Volkswagen.
okay. So I don't want that.
That's what clogged the fuel pickup in her car.
Yeah. So I'm
Was
trying
the
to
coating.
avoid that. So what we did was we took basically like a vinegar wash, and we let it sit the best we could and killed as much of the flash rust as we could. And then immediately, when we drained the vinegar wash out of it, ran water through it and then dried it very fast with the shop vac. So it has two giant holes in the tank, one for the sending unit, one for the pump.
Yeah.
Actually, not the pump, one for the sending unit, one for the pickup. So we put
Mm-hmm.
the shop vac in there, and like tried to shake it around the best we could. And anything that was still loose in there, any of the rusty dust, would be picked up into the air and then sucked up into the vacuum. And then we turned the vacuum on reverse and plugged up all the little holes to create positive pressure, and blew everything out the other hole by putting the vacuum on reverse. So now the tank was pretty clean at this point. There was still a couple little spots of surface rust, but I mean, that's not going to hurt anything. It's just that typical little surface rust now. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a water content to fuel anyway. So there's going to be moist air in the tank, depending on temperatures where there's no fuel. So if the car sits, it's going to have flash rust in there all the time, right? So what we did is, once we got as much of it out as we could, I took like what's basically like a fogging oil, and I blocked all the holes off, and I just filled the tank with this like a mist fog of almost like a WD-40, but not. It's specifically made for this purpose, basically coating things so they don't rust. And I just sprayed it until the entire can was inside the tank. And then we just taped over all the holes and sealed them up tight so no moisture can get in there. So that's the best we did. I don't think there's much more you can do. I couldn't do any of the traditional tank cleaning methods like you see on the internet, where you see people take a bunch of bolts or some rocks and throw them in there and slide everything around and dump them back out again. Because the tank is, while it's an old car, it's modern enough that it has like baffles and all kinds of places where that stuff would get trapped. And I don't think that getting a couple of spots of surface rust out is worth putting a bunch of pieces of rocks that will just be there forever. you know? So it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's no right way to do it. There's just different people's accepted methods. So that's kind of where I'm at with the tank. It's ready to go back in the car now. I have wired up the fuel pump. I've put the new fuel pump in because it's an external pump. I didn't connect the hose yet because the car is in the driveway right now. I've moved to jack the front of the car up so I can change the fuel filter. But when I pull the fuel filter off, I'm going to have that open line from the fuel pump to the fuel filter. And I have an aerosol can of carb clean and an aerosol can of fuel injector cleaner that I'm going to run through the line just to make sure it's clear. So then once that's all done, I can put everything back in, bolt it all up. I got all new hoses. The only line I'm not replacing is the line from the filter to the pump. Unless I have to. I'm not replacing that line, but I'm replacing all the other fuel lines in the car. So from the filter to the fuel rail is new, and from the pump to the tank, and then all of the, I can't think of what they call it right now, like evap lines. That's all got to be new as well. So the entire fuel system is going to be pretty much new, save for injectors at the moment. Unless I need to put injectors in it, then we'll put injectors in it. But I wasn't going to spend 25 times 6 for injectors if I don't know I need them. So, but the car runs. It runs when you put fuel in it. It's ready to go once the tank goes back in. I did finally find a windshield. I don't know if I talked about that yet or not. I've been told since I got the car that MX62 and 63 windshields are impossible to find. So I was doing a bunch of digging trying to find somebody who would make a windshield. And I called a shop who says that they can make curved glass and they do it fairly affordably. But in talking to them, they only do it for non-street driven vehicles. So they'll make you a curved glass to fit like your side-by-side or your drag car or your show car or something. But if the car is driven on the street, they won't do it.
So what does he make? Plate glass? Like he's
No,
put the film in it?
it's safety glass, but it's not DOT
Laminated?
approved. So
It's not laminated?
I don't know exactly what it is. I didn't get too into it, but they don't have the approval from the DOT to run it. So liability wise, they're just not going to do it. I mean, I guess if I told them it was for a show car or something, maybe they'd, they could play dumb, but I didn't think of that until it was too late. So, however, this company was like, well, let me see if I can find you a glass. And I was like, well, I've talked to everybody else says, no, they don't exist. And everybody in the Cressida community is like, nope, they don't exist. So he called me back like 5 hours later and he said he found 7 windshields.
Yeah.
In a couple different warehouses from some like old school vendor that he still knows. So the unfortunate part is, do you know what shipping costs are right now in this country?
Oh, I'm aware.
They're
I'm aware.
absurd. So the windshield was $125.
Yeah.
By the time the windshield's going to get to me and be installed in the car, this is a $530 windshield.
Yeah, it's like a modern windshield.
It's just frustrating that it's all in shipping. The install is only $90. It's all in like crating it because you had to obviously make a crate exactly to fit a windshield.
Yeah.
Crating and shipping and everything else. It's going to cost me over $500 for a windshield for my $600 car. So I guess I
I
could have
don't
done the thing where you
know.
register it and then you're like, oh, I got my insurance coverage. Oh, my windshield broke, but I'm not a scumbag. So I couldn't do that. I had to, take care of it ahead of time. The good news is now that I have a windshield and once the car's on the road, the car will be insured. And God forbid something does happen, it's legitimate. But I'm not going to make the insurance company buy me a windshield before I even put the car on the road. So that would be some serious karma I'd be waiting for to come back at me. So I did it the right way. But the guy called me today. Actually, the glass came in. I have an appointment next Wednesday. He's going to come here. He has one tech who's been installing windshields since the 70s, and he has experience with old Toyotas. And
Okay.
he's gonna come to the glass for me. So
All right.
I'm excited. That means that theoretically the car should run by this weekend, and then by Wednesday I'll have glass, and then I'll have to hopefully this weekend drive around the block, make sure everything works, and just start fixing all the other little things. So it's rounding the corner. I think we're gonna have another
Mm.
running car pretty soon. So good things. Speaking of running cars,
Yeah.
I bought another car that I alluded to in the last episode,
Yeah.
but I didn't talk about it yet. Blew a motor.
Oh, it did?
Yeah,
That didn't take long.
no. So I haven't even admitted ownership of this car yet to anybody except for the wallet. But if anybody in our listening audience, hopefully in the Southwest here somewhere, has a D16A, I think it's called D16A6. I'll have to look it up exactly again, but I think it's a D16A6. I need one.
Okay.
Non VTEC, 1.6 liter, single overhead cam. The So I wasn't driving the car. I basically bought the car, and Naomi's son is using the car to commute while his truck's being repaired. And through no fault of his, he was driving the car to work in the morning, just in the commute on the highway, and it started skipping. So we assumed it needed a spark plug or something was going wrong. But put new plugs and wires in, and the skipping didn't go away. So in doing a compression test, the number 3 cylinder has zero compression.
Huh.
So I'm not sure what happened. I haven't even gotten to tear it down and put like a scope down inside and look yet, but I'm assuming the worst. I mean, best case needs cylinder head, right? So
I guess. I
yeah,
don't know.
timing belt's not broke. Didn't seem to jump time. Everything else is fine. It ceased to make compression in the number 3 cylinder. So obviously no compression, no bang, no bang. It sounds like it's skipping. It is skipping. So the car is unfortunately down before I even announced that I bought it to anybody yet. I haven't even posted a picture of this car. So yeah, it's a D16A6. That's what I need. So it looks like it came in a variety of cars. Unfortunately, it's not the most common of the D series engines. It came in the 88 to 91 Civic Si, CRX Si, and Civic EX, which is the top of the line 4-door Civic, and the Civic Wagon 4-wheel drive. So it only came in the top of the line Civics from 88 to 91. So if the car is not an Si, an EX, or a 4-wheel drive wagon, it did not come with it. So it's a little harder to find because it's a 110 or 120 horsepower, 1.6 liter. So it's a good little engine when it runs good, unlike this one. So yeah, a little bummed, but we shall move on, right?
I guess so.
When you buy a cheap car, I guess you always expect something to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You don't expect the engine that sounded just fine to fall apart, but you know, such is life.
Mm-hmm.
The car doesn't seem to be like a car that was beaten. It's a clean title 91 Civic. It has no history of anything being done. It was all bone stock. So it's weird that 130,000 mile Honda engine would let go, but it did. So now it needs to be replaced. So if anybody has access to one of those, let me know. Again, I could motor come apart. It could just need to have the valves taken care of and the head resurfaced or something. But in the meantime, it's not like number one priority because I'm trying to stick to one project at a time, and I don't want to get too deep into things until the Toyota's done, or at least done enough to be driving. So those are my project car updates. Andrew, what do you got?
So we discovered something over the weekend.
Sure.
I had a Outlander Sport rental car.
On brand.
And I noticed it's actually the last Outlander Sport I had, and I think the Eclipse Cross had them too. But Mitsubishi has been using these rubber and plastic hatch bumpers for apparently the last 30 years. Because the same ones are
very similar to the Eclipse ones.
No, they're the exact same ones.
Right. So they're saying they looked very similar, so it caused us to do a little more digging.
Yeah. So yeah, on an Eclipse hatch, first gen, the hatch is really heavy, and they usually squeak now because it's old. Like I remember mine squeaked forever.
Yeah, we talked about the squeak, and you talked about changing the spoiler mounts. And I said, my hatch, I should change the spoiler mounts too. But turns out there's more squeak.
Well, it's different. There's different squeak. It would, mine would always squeak, and then the sun would come out, it'd warm out, and stuff would tighten up, it would stop squeaking. So in the wintertime, it would really squeak. And then I found in the parts car I had, I noticed the rubber bumpers, the plastic ones on the top had two shims on each side.
Okay.
And I was like, huh. So I put those onto my car, and it tightened everything up. It probably was a TSB. Yeah. And it tightened everything up, and mine stopped squeaking. But then I've noticed now that the rubber has like pushed out, maybe because of the shims.
Yeah, they have almost
little rubber fins.
These like little fingers are exactly. It looks like a heat sink almost with these little fins that come on the top.
Yeah,
and they're all squashed down in there.
Like I remember putting grease on them years ago to try to get them not to squeak, but that didn't help either. So anyway, it turns out you can buy them brand new. Like
yeah,
they still make them.
Yeah. It was like we considered stealing them off the rental car to put them on my car, but then we decided that would be good because they were only like $4 each.
Yeah. But it was funny because I rode in Tony's car and it was making the same squeaks, and I was like, I had my rental car then there. I was like, I can show you when we get back what's squeaking. So he ordered some too, and he sent me a picture of wherever he got them from. They're literally new old stock ones.
Okay.
Like the old labels.
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, that's funny. Because I got mine from Partswork, and they're like brand new labels on them. But so I think I'm going to try them without the shims first.
Yep.
See if they squeak, and then add shims as needed.
Yeah, well, we noticed that in my Eclipse, because we actually took my Eclipse I drove it to California to meet you there to jump ahead a little bit. And we took it into the Malibu Canyons we were in?
Yeah.
So we were up in the Malibu Canyons, and you noticed that the squeak was pretty evident, and you could tell that it was specifically when going from a transition like left to right, right to left, that it made the most squeaking. So we checked
body's flexing.
Yeah, we checked my spoiler, and the spoiler itself was actually pretty tight. So I don't actually need the clips for the spoiler, but we decided that it was going to be these tailgate bumpers that were actually causing the squeaking in the back of the car. So
yeah, yours are pretty squished out.
Mine are pretty worn out too. Yeah,
I think your car had shims.
My car had shims on one side, maybe. I don't remember, but we talked about it. So many of them, I don't remember now at this point. But yes, it may have had shims, and that's why I said it was probably a TSB where they added them as they wore when the cars were still under warranty. So I have to order them as well. I parked the car when I got back. I backed it in the driveway, threw a cover on it, and haven't touched it since. So
yeah, my only complaint is the car has some rattles that if you took care of the rattles, it would be a lot nicer.
My car?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know what most of the rattles are. It's just getting to them. I replaced all the suspension parts because the upper strut mounts were deafening. So I didn't know how many other rattles there were until I replaced that.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue with my car, I think it's mostly like control arm bushings and stuff are a little worn.
Yeah, probably.
and that rear brake rattle.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. It's the front control arms
Yep.
are pretty noisy,
Yep.
and then the hatch clinking back and forth.
Yep.
But
But the car, honestly, like it's one of the best Eclipses any of us have ever owned, probably. Based on reliability and distance driven and what it's taken and asked for more. Like the cars, I've literally driven that car probably 20,000 miles since I bought it. And
not that
it's,
much, huh?
yeah, well, because I mean, I bought it in Alabama. I drove it from Alabama to Boston. I drove it from Boston to Phoenix. Then I drove it from Phoenix to Austin, Austin to Phoenix, Phoenix to San Francisco, San Francisco to Phoenix, and now Phoenix to LA, and LA back to Phoenix. And then in
Hmm.
between, I've driven it a ton around here too. So, I
Yeah,
mean, I would somewhere between 15 and 20,000 miles if I looked at, my records. And I think it returned what, 32 miles per gallon on the trip home?
something like that.
Like that's the day we spent beating on it in the canyon roads. I mean, I wasn't like, I'm not going to say I was driving it like a race car, but I was definitely driving it heavier than normal, right? And we're climbing these pretty steep grades, and the car is tacking out pretty high. And I still, even on that tank of gas, got like 24 miles to the gallon. So the car is, it's fairly efficient to drive. So that's actually, I guess we can talk future news for that car. That car is going to
Yeah,
be taken off of my vintage car insurance policy and become my daily driver, I think. So one of the problems the car has, other than those couple of rattles, is the wheels are typical Mitsubishi wheels, and they don't hold air. I have to, if I park the car for more than 24 hours, I have to put air in two of the tires. While driving the car, it stays pretty pumped up, but it's when you park the car for a long time. So the wheels are pretty dinged up, pretty nasty looking. So I'm going to buy a set of wheels for it when I put it on the road daily too. So
why don't you just run the Yankees you already have
because they're in
from your old
Massachusetts,
talent?
because they're in my
Yeah, but the amount of money that you'd spend on new wheels, you could just ship those.
Andrew. I want new wheels.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, thank you. I could say the same thing to you. Why are you trying to buy new wheels for your track tires? You have wheels because you want new wheels.
Yeah, well, I need another set for a different set of tires.
Right. Well, I'm going to buy a set of the Renault Aero 16s. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, those would be pretty cool.
yeah, it's gonna cost less than having the wheels I have refinished. So, and even the wheels that I have back in Massachusetts would need to be refinished too.
Yeah.
Also, they're not really in style anymore. They're a very late 90s,
No.
early 2000s wheel. If I had a blue Talon, I'd run them just for, you know, nostalgia. But I think that if I'll eventually have them here and I'll have them as a spare set for the car. But for now, I'm going to buy a set of the Renault Aero 16s in the black and silver finish. I'm
All
going to
right. So
daily
speaking of the
spend some money on it.
yeah. So speaking of the canyons, we did some stuff before we went to the canyons.
We did.
So we'll back up a little bit. Um, Cars and Coffee at All Makes Welcome
Yep.
in Long Beach.
Highly recommended.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. You said the burrito was delicious. The coffee was delicious. The crowd was pretty rad.
Yeah, so it's commodity coffee. It's a coffee shop.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's the owners that do All Makes Welcome. I don't know who organizes it. We started on Instagram.
I'm assuming it is. It has a very similar vibe to the 4 till 4 show here.
Yeah,
It was a pretty
exactly.
good variety of cars. There was no like elitist attitude. It didn't seem. Everybody seemed like, sure, there's a couple of Porsches parked out front, but there's also a couple of, there's a, rest in peace, there was a Saab 9000 parked there that was beautiful. And, by the end of the day, there was a variety of everything from vintage Japanese to 80s German to, that was pretty much it. There wasn't much modern there, was there? There was maybe one E92 and one 991 or 997 or something. It was a pretty vintage gathering, I think.
Yep. So we did that,
We weren't
and
the only
then
Mitsubishi there either. There was a Galant VR4 there,
mhm.
so that was cool. I think his Instagram name is Pi VR4.
Yeah, because the car is 314.
That makes sense. I didn't put that together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
car number 314.
Yeah, I think it's a 91.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I think it's a 92.
It's a second. Yeah, it's 92.
Yeah.
I always in my brain always puts 90 as the first year, maybe because of Eclipse Talon stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a 92 car.
Yeah. So yeah, that we did that, and then actually we went to the. It's kind of, I don't know. It was okay. It was the heck is the name of that fancy? Oh, period correct.
Yeah, period correct cars and coffee. Don't
Yeah, period lame.
I don't support the period correct business model, but I will say that their store is rad looking.
Yeah, they had a 962 in there, which is kind of crazy. I don't understand. I don't. Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah,
It's like some really expensive clothing with like kind of boring designs on it.
yeah, and some old pictures.
Used books,
Yeah,
overpriced metal
I
toolboxes.
understand why their stuff's expensive now, seeing their location in their shop. Like,
Sure,
definitely a boutique kind of thing. Like, it's I don't know if it's a Southern California thing or just like a more
it's like a
affluent.
Porsche culture thing. I don't know what the deal with
Yeah, but
it
they're not just
is.
Porsche culture either. They have other stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't see anything there. Like, I don't want to say that I couldn't afford, but like nothing that I would spend the kind of money on that they were asking.
None of it was worth what they were asking. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Like the little folding toolbox was what, like $300,
Something insane like that.
and it's like the old school, like the metal lunchbox style toolbox.
They're annoying toolboxes to use. That's why nobody uses them anymore.
Yeah, very,
Because all your tools bang around in them.
yeah,
Like you go buy a tool bag.
yeah. It's weird. Unless you want to look like a tool bag, then you buy a metal toolbox.
Yeah, I guess
But
it was pretty dumb.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
it was a little annoying because we got there and there were some spots that were blocked with cones, but nobody was like, "All right, you can park here." And then we drove up to like the main entrance, and the guy's like, "Oh, you're not in the list. You can't come in." And I was like, "All right, that's fine. Like, whatever. The Eclipse isn't exactly like the world's nicest car. It is what it is. I understand not being a featured car." But then he's like, "Well, there's some spots with cones back by the front. You can park there." So we're like, "All right, we saw those." We went back, and then other people were already parked there. So I don't know if like they knew or if somebody saw their car and was like, "Oh yeah, you're here for the show. You can park here." So there was some overflow parking on the top of the parking garage, which actually wound up being kind of neat because it was kind of a cool photo op afterwards. But yeah, there wasn't much there that was worth looking at as far as the car show goes. Like I'm not sure what it takes to be the exclusive members there or invited in. There was like a really
Wasn't worth the
nice,
drive.
yeah, there was a nice 911. There was a nice 356, and there was some ratty drift cars and a new Corolla hatch that's not a GR, obviously.
Random
A
Thunderbird.
random old guy in a 57 Thunderbird. Like it just was it was a weird mix. The vibe wasn't like inviting. And then like I said, the storefront inside, like I wanted to see it. And I'm glad I went in because the 962 was awesome. It's literally the Shell sponsored 962. It's like the car I have models of here. That was driven by Hans Stuck. That was cool. But and their little slot car track they have set up in there, which you can't use, but it's a super fancy 1/32 scale with real nice stuff. It was neat to see, but overall, the vibe was just weird, and I didn't feel welcome. So we're like, all right, we're gonna grab some food somewhere here and get out. So can't recommend that one. I actually, until you just brought it up, I forgot we went there.
Yeah, exactly. I almost forgot too.
Yeah, because
It just wasn't
we
worth
talked
it.
about All Makes Welcome, which was awesome. Then
Yeah.
you're like, and then we went over to, and I was like, no, Andrew, in my brain, I was like, that was the next day. That was the afterwards.
No.
But you're right. It was afterwards you went there. I forgot about that. Yeah, not worth it. Not worth traipsing across LA. And it's funny because the two modern cars that were at All Makes Welcome were in the featured parking when we got there at the Period Correct as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've never
Then
understood the
we
Period Correct model. It's one of those, I guess not everything's for us, right? So that's one of those things.
yeah, if you want to overpay for dumb things, go for it.
That's what the world is built on. I'd
Yeah,
go back to earlier in our conversation about dealer markup
yeah.
in new cars.
There's a ass for every seat.
Yep,
So,
there's a torso for every
um,
overpriced T-shirt.
yeah, exactly. Um, all right. So then we're like, yeah, screw that. We had some lunch, or we didn't have lunch. We had like a snack.
Yeah, there was a
Um,
Whole Foods or something there, so we grabbed a snack.
so yeah, we ran some
When in
canyons.
California, Andrew.
Um, I go to Whole Foods all
I know.
the time.
We just
um,
talk about how we're not elitist. Don't admit that. Come on now.
that's it's kind of over. It's owned by Amazon.
Is it
It's
really?
not really hipster anymore.
I never knew
Yeah.
that. That's kind of Trader Joe's
So
is owned
yeah,
by Aldi. Weird, right?
the I don't remember. I only remember the name of the one, but we're the one road, Tuna Canyon.
Oh, see, not supposed to say names of the roads, Andrew. All our thousands and thousands of people will be there next weekend.
Yeah, I think people know this road anyways.
Yeah, there were a bunch of cool roads we drove up, and all of them interconnect somewhere. I remember because you were super annoyed because the first road you wanted to drive up, we got there and it was a dead end, and you're like, I don't know, screw it, let's go home. And I was like, no, there's got to be a better place to go. So I literally just Google searched canyon roads in the area and found some other ones, and eventually it wound up reconnecting back to that road we wanted to drive, and that road was super cool. It's cool because it
Yeah,
is
it was
one
really
way.
cool.
So when you're going the other way, you know you're not going to run into a car coming up because the road is so narrow that it would be a disaster. Like,
Yeah, there was some dudes doing downhill skateboarding on it, which was pretty insane.
so
I've seen some insane car rally stuff. That was one of the more insane things I've seen on a
yeah,
road.
so they're at the top of the hill when we got there, and we went down and we caught up to this car. So we pulled off on a big pull off area, and we're like, let's just wait for this car to get to the bottom so we can have a nice run to the bottom. So we were kind of walking around taking pictures, and then I kind of heard like some hooting and hollering coming down the hill, followed by like the sound of obviously skateboard wheels. And
Yeah,
all of a sudden, this dude pops around the corner at, I don't even know, he must have been doing 40 plus miles an hour. He was
had to be.
hauling. He was going so fast on a skateboard that the car that was chasing him videoing was breaking traction in the corners.
It was like an MKZ or
It
something.
was, yeah, it was a
Was
Ford
it like
Fusion. Yeah.
it was Ford Fusion? Yeah,
It
I was
wasn't a
like,
performance car, but still, it was
no.
literally breaking traction. It was understeering into the turns, and like you could hear that more than anything else. The tires just like giving up. Yeah,
It's like
the car was in
okay.
like full dive going around the corner because the car was doing. Again, this is a corner that I probably took in the Eclipse. I would have taken it like 35, and this guy in this Ford Fusion with mismatched all seasons is doing 50. So with three teenagers hanging out of it with cameras, it was pretty. It was a
It
pretty
was
rad scene.
it was very cowboy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a pretty rad scene. Do you remember what the name of that skateboard company was? Because we got to the bottom and we were like, "Hey guys," and then I was wondering if they were going to be like, "Oh man," they yell at us for something stupid. We are like, "No, that was super cool. Where can we see this video?" Do you remember the name of it was?
hold on. Let me see. I saved it, I think,
Oh, okay.
or I took a picture of it, like a screen grab, because I think it was
It was so long ago now; it's not in my recent history
here. It is
anymore.
Madrid Skateboard
Madrid
Factory.
skateboards. Yep, that's what it was. So they're doing a video, a full feature length one, I guess they said, that's going to have that footage in it. So that should be super cool to watch.
Weird.
So watch that video and then see us on like the halfway down part.
It must have been around for a while because yeah, shaping skateboarding since 1976, as seen in Back to the Future and Stranger Things TV.
That's cool.
Made in the USA.
Yeah, their Instagram
Madrid
account is
Skateboards.
Madrid Skateboards, all one word. So yeah, I followed them after that, so we can keep an eye out for that video because it's definitely cool. And again, halfway through the downhill, you're going to see us just standing on the side of the road, just probably like
Mm-hmm.
jaw on the ground because we were so surprised at how fast they were moving. I've never been good at skateboarding, so I can't imagine being great at it. My balance has never been good enough. So then the next day, we were like, all right, let's do another Cars and Coffee, right?
Yeah.
So we did two more. I don't remember the name of the first one. I'd tell you not to go because it was pretty lame. But we got up super early and we went over to this one that was on the beach
Yeah.
because the pictures of it looked cool and some cool stuff was there in the photos. And it had a fairly old school vibe to it. Plus, it was on the beach. So that's kind of like an iconic scene right there, like a bunch of cars lined up along the boardwalk, right?
Hmm.
We got there and it was basically a Mark 6 and 7 GTI meet,
Yeah.
which again, whatever, it's fine, do your thing, but I didn't have any interest in stopping. So we kind of just pushed on through and kept going. And we went to the Sonke Blue Social.
Hmm.
It's a Sonkei. Sonke Blue Social is their Instagram name. They do an event. I think it's going to be once a month, but that was a super cool event. Had tons of vintage Japanese. I posted on my Instagram page some pictures of
Oh,
the rotary
we
cars.
skipped a part.
What we skip?
We found out about this
Oh, we went to
because
the
we went
rotary
to
meet
a
the night before, which is also kind of a bust because there were only like
yeah, because it
five
was
cars.
cold. Apparently, it was
It
quote
was
unquote
it was
cold.
65 degrees, so nobody came out because it's
Yeah.
California. But we did meet one guy there who was super cool. He chatted with us for a while. Didn't make fun of us too bad for being there in a Mitsubishi because it was
No,
again
but
an
he's
all
like, yeah, come
rotary.
out to this other event.
Yeah, and he told us about the Sonke Blue social event. So it's because of him that we found it. And then we got there the next morning, and all he remembered from us was that we were both originally from Boston. So he was like, "Hey, Boston!" So at least he remembered us. He was a cool guy. He drove an RX-8 that seemed pretty well sorted. Actually, it had a very purposeful stance, nice wheels, tires, spoiler or wing, I guess. It was kind of a neat RX-8, but there was a huge rotary crowd there. There were what, three RX3s, an R100, a couple of Datsun 510s, some real like Wangan style Hondas, a couple of lowriders, pretty much every style, some hot rods, some 16-year-old kids in an AMG G wagon being dumb.
And everybody ripping him on it.
Yeah, and they
So
got made fun of pretty hard for that, so that's pretty good. I think going way back to the beginning of the episode, I think that's how we take back car culture. Public shame,
yeah,
right? I mean, how is he going to do it? Tell the people they're being dumb. These guys, they stopped in the middle of the show and then they loaded up the torque converter, and I assume it's got a torque converter in those, right? And anyway,
I don't know what it
they
was.
they brake boosted it and took off, and were doing way too fast by the end of the street and completely out of control because they were 16 years old. And then another person came in a Hellcat Charger and did some giant smoky burnout across the street, and then came to the show and parked. And immediately, people who are, I'm assuming, in charge of the show went over and read him the riot act. So, public shame is how we take back car culture, I guess. But yeah, it was a cool meet. A lot of cool stuff there. We spent a good amount of time there. We learned a new phrase.
Oh, federal.
Federal. That's federal. You don't say that's criminal. You say that's federal.
Yeah,
So
I
now,
forgot about
now
that.
that we have used it
No,
in
it's
public,
over.
it's over. Sorry, guys. We've ruined your phrase. It was funny because all the cars were parked along, it was a parking lot. And there was like, I'd say maybe a 6 foot wide strip of grass between the parking lot and the street. And
Yeah,
all the cars were parked up against it. And all of a sudden the sprinklers came on. And we're not talking about like a little bit of water. It was like a full on like soaking of all the cars with their engine bays open and their roofs open and their doors. And it was a disaster. And everybody was like, "Oh no, what? Oh, and scrambled to get their cars." And this one guy just behind us, he goes, "Man, that's federal," and it
yeah.
struck us quite funny. So sorry to ruin it for you, but I've now said that's federal a few times. So it's my new favorite youth culture appropriation word. Taking it away. Sorry, youths. Sorry, fellow youths.
Yeah.
That kind of wraps up our trip to California, or at least our trip together to California. I didn't do much else after that. I think we got lunch and I got in the car and I headed home, and I
Yeah.
was home before dark. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like a
And then that's when I went.
5-ish hour drive home from there for me.
That's when I went and hang out with Tony after that.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah. Then during the week, I'm working, and there was on Instagram. I saw there was a show at the Fujiwara Tofu Cafe, which is supposed to be from Initial D,
Sure.
and it was like 30 minutes away. It was like, oh, like a drifty type show hosted by Larry Chen. And I was like, all right, that sounds cool.
Sure.
So we ended up. I went out with work people for dinner, so I didn't get out of that till like 8, and this thing went from like 7 to 10 or something. It was like 40 minutes away because of traffic. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me run over there and see what it looks like. It was a disaster because there was an hour left, but it was like, I don't know. It was not for me. It's not my scene.
I again, probably what was
I
happening
think,
in the parking garage.
yeah, but it was just, yeah, just too many people. Um, just kind of not just like average cars. Nothing really special.
I think you sent me a picture of
Um,
like a Koska sedan.
yeah, it was like just not. It was, I don't know. It's like it felt like what I said earlier with the old mass tuning meets that were at night.
Sure, it was the early
Kind of
Fast and the
devolved into
Furious
just
days. Yeah.
chaos. Yeah, and yeah, you know what? I decided that the morning meets is where it's at
Yeah.
because I'm
Riffraff
not
don't wake
old,
up.
but yeah, exactly. I'm at an age where I want to get up. I go have a coffee and then I go do the rest of my day.
Yep.
Um, and I don't need to spend all night out with
Your fellow youths.
cars anymore.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
just not.
talking to a friend out here, also a fellow Cressida owner, and we were having a very similar conversation offline. And I think that we're both at a point where we're moving forward with this. And I don't know if you want to try to do it out there too at the same time, but you're more than welcome to. We're going to start doing an invite only once a month gathering. It's going to be at a different location each month. It's going to be 10 to 15 people to start, and it's going to be like a local coffee shop. Like we'll meet at like Coffee Zona, and then we can hang out there for a little while, drink some coffee, be customers. And if we want to organize a drive afterwards, we can organize a drive afterwards to go up, maybe a mountain road somewhere here or take a cruise together. If not, you can go home, be with your family, and totally optional. And my plan is to do it at a different place every month so that sometimes it's going to be a 10-minute drive from your house and sometimes it might be a 40-minute drive. But come out, hang out, have some coffee with friends, talk cars, maybe do a drive, maybe don't, but just be invite only, at least at first, probably forever. If you know kind of deal.
I think we're gonna pilot it out there
Okay,
because it's my corporate speak. We're gonna do a pilot
sure.
on it, because that way we can kind of get the pictures and show the feel
I,
of what we're going
I think
for.
you can do it out there too if you just invite some of our friends. Like we've been lived there your whole life. You know some people. We can promote it for the same day. We can have the same weekend, and it'll be an
Maybe
East
I don't know
Coast
if I know
event and a
enough
West
people,
Coast event.
but we'll find out.
I think you do. I think you do. You've been doing this car thing for a long time, Andrew. You know a lot of people. So, and most of our listeners are on the East Coast, just because that's where we started this. So we definitely have quite a few people that I think would participate in that. And just based on a group chat that we're in, you'd have at least 4 or 5 people in your first your first event. So that's all you need. We're not looking for a huge crowd. We're looking for 10, maybe 15 people tops, just to make it a casual gathering of just like-minded individuals.
Yeah,
So, and I say invite only. If you're listening to this, consider yourself invited.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that all of our listeners won't show up and have it become
No,
literally 20s of people.
yeah. I think we've got a name for it. We're gonna work on a little
Yeah,
logo,
we're working on some stuff.
and
I'm gonna go too corporate with it, but it'll be like I said, it'll be a little if you know kind of deal.
well, you gotta have something ready to like brand it a little bit if you need to. So
Sure. Something to sell it to the coffee shop. Why are there 15 cars here? Well, this is us. We're gonna buy coffees. If you have breakfast, we'll probably buy that too. We're just customers.
yeah,
This is our meeting point. And I think
well,
that
there's
that would,
nothing wrong with that.
yeah, I think that would be. I think that's kind of the scene I'm looking for now. You know, not this big crowds. I like the morning shows because they're usually a more low key crowd, less drama, less issues. I mean, I think I talked about it on podcast a couple weeks ago. I even went to like a typical like, and to use a 2022 catchphrase word, a boomer car show. You know, a typical Saturday night cruise night, and they were
I don't know. I like the paths.
oh, and it's great. It's a good time, but it also devolves towards the end to the point that the police have started throwing you out of there at 8 o'clock
Uh,
because it's devolved in the end. And that's the same thing. It's that same crowd that comes out after 9 to 10, and the two-step cars come out, and the neon lights are flashing, and burnouts happen, and drifting happens, and fights happen. And but anyway, I went to one of those typical, Saturday night shows, and I watched two or four, I should say. It was a group of like 55 to 60-year-old men literally fighting about a parking spot. But they
oh,
were arguing
unexpected.
arguing about a parking spot, like to the point where they had to be like pulled apart from each other. So one of them was mad because he wasn't allowed to park there, and he's like, "No, you can't park here because you're not in our club." And it's like, it's first of all, it's an open parking lot at a furniture store. Like, relax. Second of all, you all drive identical Dodge Challengers. Double relax. Like, relax.
What was Frank's Gang? And It's Always Sunny. Is it like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Club.
Yeah. You said Dodge, I said Dodge Challenger, and you said Frank's gang. I thought you were talking about our friend named Frank who has a Dodge Challenger, and I was like, "What? Frank had a gang?" But I get where you went with that, so never mind. But no, it was definitely a weird scene, and I just don't need that in my life. I enjoy car life, right? Just
Yeah.
relax, have a good time. We're not out to win races. We're not out to win car shows. We just enjoy cars. We enjoy working on them. We enjoy talking about them. We enjoy hanging around other people that have the same interests. And ultimately, we enjoy driving them. So I think we just need to promote that culture. I was talking to this friend out here whose name is Mark. He also said he's also a Cresta owner, but he was talking about his father's Volkswagen club back in the day. And he has the same thought that you or I have about clubs. Like, we're not going to start a car club. We don't want a car club.
No.
It's not our thing. We don't want politics. We don't want dues. We don't want any of that stuff in a club. But he was talking about his father's Volkswagen clubs back in the days and the stories his father tells from like the 60s and 70s. And I'm sure that the stories are told with, the rose colored glasses, but talking about how they'd have a Volkswagen event. Like, just this past weekend here, we had Buggerama. And the night before Buggerama, all the dudes in the club would all hang out at one of the dudes' houses and clean their cars and prep their cars and work on one guy's car if it needed help getting done. And that's just kind of the vibe I'm looking to build, minus the club aspect. Just, if you know, you're in this group, we do cool car shit. And if you want to come, great. If you don't want to come, great. Just be cool. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Right.
And that's how we're going to take back car culture. We're going to be that group that just is, I don't want to say we're respectful and great to everybody, because we're not trying to be respectful and great to everybody. We're just trying to enjoy our hobby without drama. And I think that's what we need to look for. So,
Yeah. Speaking of good events like that, I went over last Sunday. Revival Motoring Podcast had their donut meet down at their headquarters.
excellent.
Which again is if you know, you're welcome to come.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, that was cool because they already had one, but it was kind of colder, so we didn't go. But this one was a little warmer. I met our buddy Chris down there. He brought his Delica.
You brought the Montero, right?
I brought the Montero because my son wanted to ride in it
And you never
because
had
he
before.
hadn't ridden
Yeah.
in it yet. No, and really wasn't old enough, and now because he can sit forward now,
Yep.
facing forward
Right.
in the seat, so it's more fun.
Plus, he walks by it
Um,
every day in the driveway, and he points at it and says, "Dada's truck," right? So you got to take it
yeah,
for a drive.
so he's got the new Hot Wheels Toyota FJ80,
Okay.
which looks like a Montero.
Sure. To a 2-year-old, I can
But
see that. It's a beige colored SUV.
that's Data Truck.
Yep.
So, well, he's got the gray one. He's got the tan one now. I found a tan one in California. I brought back for him,
Right.
so he's got two. And yeah, he couldn't stop talking about riding in the truck. It was funny.
It's awesome. That's what it's all
He
about.
was very excited, and he really liked the sunroof because he could see airplanes through it.
Excellent.
So, And you let them sit in it and turn the wheel and stuff. So
Excellent. See that's what it's all about. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah,
But anyway, so you had the 4-wheel drive Mitsubishi contingent at the donut meet.
right.
So that's cool. I saw some pictures. It looked like a good time. I know I've been to one of those with you last summer, and it was pretty fun. It's that same kind of vibe where it's just like everybody's friendly. There's no attitudes, and it's just cool people doing cool stuff. So I support that completely. I went to
Do any other
I went
events?
to a little bit douchier of a Saturday morning show. There's an event here put on by a company called Highline Autos, which I'm not sure what they
Yeah.
do. I'm not sure if it's a dealership or what, but they have a magazine and they do this Highline Autos at High Street. So High Street is like an outdoor mall kind of thing. It reminds me of, for people that are from the Northeast, like you, the what's that one in Linfield? I can't think of the name of it.
What, Market
Market
Street?
Street. Yeah, it's that kind of a place. Like it's higher end stores, higher end restaurants, outdoor open air mall shopping. But anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
once every first Saturday they do a Highline Autos at High Street, and it's invite only kind of. But you can also like email them and be like, "Hey, I have this. I want to bring it. Can I?" So Wednesday night before it, I was like, "You know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna send pictures of my car and see if I can park there." And they said yes. So I brought my car to that show. It was kind of fun. It was neat being in a little bit different of a scene. There was a Lamborghini Cyan. You know what that
A
is?
Scion?
Cyan. Syan. It's one of
A
60, it's one
cyan?
of 63. It was also blue, so maybe just cyan. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
cyan. That's blue.
No, but it's Syan, not all blue. It
Oh,
doesn't happen to be blue. There's only 63 of them. They all say number 63 on the side, and they're super
okay.
valuable.
You
Super
and
cool.
63 of your friends
Right. So that was
all have the same
so that
car.
was there. There was a the new 2021 the Iso Griffith, the like Italian sports car that they relaunched last year that they
I
don't
don't know.
officially sell here. There was one of those. There's a Ferrari 275 GTB that was an actual Mille Miglia winning car from 1950 something or 60 something, 1965 Mille winner with plates on it, street driven to show. Like that's got to be a what 13, $14 million car now. That was pretty amazing. It's cool. It's a neat show. It's like I said, it's not invite only, but you kind of have to be allowed to go. Nobody checked credentials or anything when I rolled in. I was ready with like the email saying I could be there, so maybe you can just go. I don't know. It's not a super inviting vibe, but it's not something I go to every week with my car. It was a bit more high stress and a little more less relaxed than I like a show to be to participate in. But I do generally go to take pictures because there's always some cool stuff there. The following day, there was a show here for motorcycles called the Front Row Moto Show. And it's a pretty big deal, I guess. It's a custom motorcycle show, and it runs the gamut from dirt bikes to cafe bikes to bobbers and choppers and anything in between that doesn't fit a style. And that was super cool. It was very laid back. It was very low key. They had this food court area that they took all the tables out of, and they put the motorcycles in display in that food court area. But all like the little food vendors were still open, so you could get good food and walk around. And there were some tables around the edges. There was some famous motorcycle companies were there selling their goods. I know that Go Fast Don't Die company they were there.
Yeah.
Do you remember the girl from the TV show on like the Motor Trend Network, the Girl Gang Garage or whatever, all Girls Garage?
Yeah.
So she had her little setup there with a car they built, or truck they built. And if you go to our Instagram page, you can see it. It's like a 1955 Chevy pickup with a
Oh,
M5
okay.
V8, like super rad build. And they built that car that was there, and she was there talking about that. And it was a neat little like the aesthetic was awesome because there was the part in the food court, and then across the way there was another part of the show was in a 1950s 60s style garage, like a service garage that's vacant, and it was just all emptied out. And they had vendors in there. They had more show bikes in there. They had a guy like playing live rockabilly style music. Because it was motorcycles, they had an actual like full tattoo studio set up in the office of the garage, and like they were doing tattoos on the spot. There were pinstripers there. There were a couple of cool like very period correct hot rods, like a 29 Ford and a 32 Ford. It was a super rad show, and it just made me really want to get back into a motorcycle again. I already did, and going to this didn't help. But I think I put some pictures of that on both pages. I know on my Instagram page I did, and I think I might have on the Auto Off Topic page, or I might have just put pictures of the truck. But I have plenty of shots, and I'll be sure to post some more as the week goes on, because there was some really neat builds there. And actually, I didn't even know this, but I'm sure that you've seen me post that yellow Cressida around here, the other MX-32, like my blue car.
Yeah.
He also has a super cool Triumph build that he had on, like almost like debuted at that show, that I had never seen, like a '60s Triumph bobber style motorcycle. Very cool stuff. The scene here is just, there's no words to describe it. The amount of cool stuff here is amazing, and unfortunately, it's coming into the warm season here, so it has to slow down a little bit. But that's why I think it's going to be a perfect time to start this kind of low key event with just friends who know. So
Cool.
yeah, I think that's it.
So, yeah, just one quick upcoming event note. Southern New Hampshire Cars and Coffee at Londonderry Speedway is this Sunday, the 10th.
That should be interesting to see how that goes off.
Yeah, it's $10 to enter. They take cash and Venmo,
And before you say no,
should-
it's $10. It's $10 because it's inside a racetrack, and they racetrack,
yeah, a little quarter mile short track.
the racetrack
or
is
eighth mile.
requiring it, I think. So,
Yeah, it covers their insurance and
yeah.
stuff.
So
But
we'll see how it
Malin's set up.
goes.
Yep, Malin's got like food trucks set up and music.
Yeah. So hopefully it works out
So,
well.
yeah, so I'll go check it out.
Yeah, I've always liked that show. I mean, the idea of paying to get into a Cars and Coffee hurts, but I understand why, because it's because of the location. So I would, if I was there, I would support this. You know, I always supported the old Southern New Hampshire Cars and Coffee because we like the people involved. But
on the flip side, maybe it keeps the clowns
it
away.
will definitely keep clowns out. There's no question.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about interactions at the door when people don't want to pay when they get there.
Well, she's made it very clear on all the posts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And it's
I hope it
actually
goes
the
well.
track staff that takes it.
That's even better, as long as they don't have to deal with it. I wish her nothing but the best. I like Malin. She's a good person. She has good intentions here. And like I said, I think the only reason that they're charging is because they're at an actual location now that has to have insurance to open their gates. So hopefully it works out.
Mm-hmm.
If I were there, I'd be there. I'm not, so I won't.
Yep.
Maybe when I'm there in May or June. We'll see. Excellent.
All right, cool.
Well,
I think that makes an episode.
social media.
Yeah. So as always, we're on Instagram, Odd Off Topic Podcast on Facebook. I think just our Instagram maybe post there. I don't know. Kind of getting away from that because there's no engagement there. Nobody seems to care.
I still post there.
So, okay. We definitely get more active on Instagram with Odd Off Topic. So
Instagram
that's really the
or
place
Twitter?
to follow us. I actually don't use the account that much on Twitter.
Are you talking about?
Just
Okay,
my
I think
own.
I just misunderstood what you said. You said you're not posting on Facebook's Auto Off Topic.
Yeah, we don't really do that.
Okay, no. I don't do that at all. But everything we post on
Yeah,
our
exactly.
Instagram goes to the Facebook anyway.
Does
It
it?
does. Yep.
Okay. Maybe when I do it, I don't have it connected. I think for some reason it messes up and only lets you connect one at a time.
Well, no, because it's
Something really dumb.
connected through your account. Because you have, and this is off air stuff. We'll figure it out afterwards. But anyway, yes, everything I post on the Auto Off Topic Instagram, I do see on the Facebook page. So anyway, follow the Instagram page. If you have Facebook,
Yeah, that's where it's
get rid
at.
of Facebook and just go to Instagram. I know it's the same
even though
company,
the
so
same
it doesn't
company.
matter. But Facebook's for pictures.
Instagram's better.
Sorry, Instagram's for pictures. Facebook's for
Drama.
and bad politics and pictures of your family's babies.
All right. Anyway,
And I am at
I'm on
TSI.
Instagram too.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You can go. You were done yet. You're done yet. It's fine.
I am at let's see. Who am I?
Race and Anger.
I'm at Race and Anger on Instagram and on Twitter. So there you go.
And I am TSISS350 on Instagram. And still not on Twitter because password dumb things have happened.
Yeah, sure. All right, cool.
Old man, I can't do it.
So,
Old man
as
technology
always,
issues. I'm lying. I should be able to figure it out. For some reason, I can't.
you're not old.
I know I'm not old,
Stop saying
but I just can't make my my Twitter work. I have an account. Can't make it work.
How to make password send tweets.
Yes, exactly. That's what's going to happen. You're going to see that. My first tweet is going to be my password. You know, God damn it!
All right.
Alexa, delete.
Well, anyways. So, keep cars analog. Maybe Brad will get on Twitter and aim for the roses.